So I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Southborough School Committee, the open meeting, Wednesday, October 13th, 2021. It is 6:31 p.m. and all the committee members are in attendance. And the first item on the agenda is audience sharing. And I don't see anyone with their hand up. So we will move to new business. And with that, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Martineau.
Thank you. So this evening we'll provide a COVID-19 update. And it's been a very busy month of September and beginning of October. And before I turn it over to Mary Ellen Duggan, I just want to acknowledge the hard work of our nursing team in Southborough. They've been amazing, helping us launch the school year, keeping our faculty, students safe. They've launched the test and stay program, which was a great undertaking, and also the pool testing program, which has taken a tremendous amount of time. Although many of the mitigation efforts have been lightened in terms of social distancing, some of the in-school requirements, I will share that for our nurses, the requirement of contact tracing for every case remains constant and is a significant task. So I just want to begin by acknowledging all the hard work of our school nurses. They truly are an outstanding team. So with that said, I'll just give a brief update on the face mask policy. So the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education have extended the masking mandate through November 1st. And then as of November 1st, districts who have 80% of their students vaccinated school committees can choose to lift the masking mandate. However, because we are pre-K through 8 and vaccinations are only available to students 12 and older, we are not going to meet that 80% threshold anytime soon. So hopefully vaccinations will be available to our younger population and we'll move toward that 80% vaccination rate. So at this time, our face mask policy will be in place and will be under the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's masking mandate until we meet the threshold. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mary Ellen, who will give an update on the state testing program, our vaccination rates, and the dashboard, and also what some of the conversations that are taking place with our medical advisory team.
I see Kamali has her hand up, and I've got a question also. Kamali?
Greg, could you just repeat the bit where you explained that because we are pre-K through 12 or pre-K through 8th, and we won't meet that 80% threshold? Could you just explain that again so that it's clear?
Sure. So
Greg, this will be a part of your answer. What percentage are we, if I could just ask, and then I won't have a question.
Sure. Grade 8, we are 85%. Grade 7, we are at 78.63%, and grade 6, we're at 11.19%. So the mask mandate basically states that school districts can choose to opt out of masking once a school has reached the 80% vaccination rate. So for example, for Trotter and the school committee to consider lifting the masking mandate, Trotter would need to have an aggregate vaccination rate of 80% amongst its students as well as faculty and staff. And again, with our 6th grade students primarily not able to have access to a vaccination, it's going to be very difficult for us to reach that 80% threshold until vaccination does become available.
Katura.
Thank you. So could you just clarify, or do those percentages include all people in the building, or is that just students?
So the percentages I gave are just students, but the survey, the anonymous survey we did, faculty and staff and our employees, we have a a 98% vaccination rate of the participants who took the survey. And we had approximately 90% participation in that survey between all faculty and staff across our 3 districts.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
All right, Mary Ellen.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'll start with the state testing program. So we've began our COVID safety checks last week with a new company, Veronicas. We've hit a few bumps in the road with their reporting out to us. It's not as easy as we had it before to get all the data that compares schools against schools and the percentage rates, but they are working on improving that as we speak. I've met with many of them many times to work on their dashboard. So last week, we had about 2,000 people participate throughout the whole district. And this week, Southborough probably, it looked like about 1,100 or 1,200 people had participated in Southborough, between Southborough and the high school today. So hopefully we'll get those numbers a little bit clearer for the next time we meet, and they'll be on the dashboard once we are able to extract that information from the Veronicas portal. We have seen not many cases in Southborough, which is nice compared to the district as a whole. Southborough, I think, had 0 cases last week and 1 case this week. So those numbers are great. Our test and stay program, we have a centralized site in Northborough, and we have set up a centralized site in Southborough that we haven't had to use yet. So that is ready to go when we need to use it for in-school close contacts. As Greg said, he went over the vaccination rates, what we're seeing. We saw a little bit of possible in-school transmission the first 2 weeks with some cases at Finn, but we haven't seen anything since then. And I think that's it for the COVID numbers. So I can take questions and the testing, I can take questions here, and then we can move forward if there's other things you want to know about.
Mary Ellen, I'm going to jump in quickly. So the Veronicas Dashboard, if you will, which right now doesn't have the breakdown by school, et cetera. You said you were optimistic, I guess, or maybe that's my word, not yours, that by the next time we meet, that would be straightened out. Because I was going to ask before you said that, when do you anticipate that they will get that information, I guess, correct? Is it over the next month or in a week from now, or it's hard to guess, but I'll put you on the spot and say, take a guess.
That's okay. You can put me on the spot because as Greg has walked in on many conversations I've had with Veronicas over the past daily, I call them, with our list of what we need to be able to pull in a report. I've connected them with our friends from JCM, because when we started out with JCM, we had a few bumps in the road with their reporting out to us too. So I've connected those 2 companies together. Hopefully they can work together to create a dashboard that's user-friendly for everybody, and that we can extract the data we want. What happened last week when we sent them, they reported them all as being from Algonquin, because that's where they shipped the tubes, the kits to. And so they're working on that, but it's, so that was part of the problem why we can't extract that data of what each school numbers were last week, but hopefully this week they have my list of my top 3 things that we need for this week. So hopefully we'll be able to get some of those done.
So it sounds like the next week or 2, then what you're suggesting is possible?
I'm hopeful, yes.
Okay.
It's a top priority for CIC, which is the company that has the whole state testing program. I'm in daily conversations with them also.
Okay, thank you. Kim, you're at the top of the list.
Mary Ellen, about the my brain is stuck. It's been a long day. About the before when we were talking about pool testing as a mitigation strategy, there were like goal percentages. Is there anything like that now? Do we have a goal that you'd like to see in each school?
I would like to see 100%, Kim, but.
Yes, right. I agree. But
That would be
wasn't there a
my
number
goal.
that was like a valid, like this makes it a valid mitigation strategy.
I think whatever we can find out, whatever testing method we have, or screening method we have, whatever, the more participation we have, obviously, the more we'll have data from what is in our schools at that point in time. Our goal always was 80% or higher. We never
Okay.
quite reached that. One school got close last year, but I think we really did well compared to other school districts for our pooled screening. So I know that Finn has, they had a very high amount of participation today, is what I heard. So I think this where people are seeing the what good this is going to do if everybody participates, what we're going to have.
Perfect. And then the other question is, are you relying on families to sort of report, like if they're positive, like if they get a test outside of school, or do you get numbers from, like, how does it work?
Okay, so how does it all work? So families do report this. There's many ways we find out about positives. Either they're part of our pool, right? So I get the report right there. Families do report it. If families do report it, we ask for the whatever printout they have of the positive test so that we have confirmation of it. And we talk with the Board of Health daily. I have access to the Maven dashboard, which is our Department of Public Health dashboard, where all of the positive cases go.
And do they have, like, so what's ideal for you? Like the parents tell you, will that make it quicker, or to start the contact tracing, or do you have pretty much up to date through that dashboard?
Both. I mean, I think the parents typically find out first. Sometimes there's a little bit of delay go to the dashboard. It depends on when the labs report it into the state. So every
not
lab
a
has
concern, basically.
Every lab has a protocol. So we really haven't seen any that we haven't known about and haven't been able to contact trace pretty rapidly.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Jen, you're up.
I was wondering what are we doing, or what are the strategies to try and increase participation? I know that some, school districts are trying to think creatively around how to increase the participation in pool testing, like raffles and other ideas. And I'm wondering, are we doing anything beyond just sending out an occasional email to parents?
I think at this point in time, when I can't track what our participation rates are, there's really no way to raffle things off, or to, if we had a certain amount of participation. I think that we did throw this back and forth last year when we were trying to up our participation rate. So, I mean, it's something that we can talk about once we get the program up and running.
Mary Ellen, I would just add that our number one goal is to get the program up and running, which has been extremely challenging. I would say that we're one of the few districts in the Commonwealth that actually has launched, and Mary Ellen has been instrumental in providing input and advice around how to make this work for schools. We are frustrated because we did have a pooled screening program that worked well for our families and for us, and we do feel like we took a step back because we're having to relearn the tools and resources. So as soon as we get it off the ground and we feel comfortable with the tools, I think we can go on a marketing, whether it's raffles or, try to be creative, working with our principals around getting the participation rate at 80%.
And then this is just a quick comment, because I noticed that there's a question in chat. So we just let people know that we cannot answer questions back and forth in this forum, but recommend that they send those questions along to the district.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank
you. Kamali?
And as far as the pool testing, being the new vendor, are there maybe the top 2 or top 3 challenges that you've heard from parents or participants that in the last 2-3 weeks, or I should say 2 weeks, that you can say now, you know, you've communicated with them and we're working to resolve, or we are already resolved?
I think what we saw the first week was that a lot of samples people didn't follow the instructions. So with this, last year, all you had to do was send in your sample. This year, you had to scan it in. You have to verify it, basically register your sample at home. Before it comes to school, you need to write full name and date of birth on the tube itself. Those are 2 identifiers that are needed at the lab. So when it comes to school, we need to scan it in. And if all those things aren't done, then that's an added task that the people scanning in. It's not the nurses right now that are scanning in. It's our support team from the state that we have, that we've worked hard to get and keep, that travels from school to scan in the tests. I think we had less outliers today that didn't meet all the criteria to be scanned in. So that's a great thing. I think the consent not being done is probably the biggest thing, the biggest problem that we'll run into. Like people are sending in the tube, not so much at the elementary schools, because only people who have consented are getting them. So, but when we get to the upper grades, I'm not sure how they're handed out, but I know at the high school that a missing consent was a problem, and for staff too, not just the students. So it's just learning that whole new process.
Okay.
Learning curve for everybody.
Okay. And then additionally, you just alluded to my next question. So you said that we do have support services from the state. I think we've all learned that that's happening throughout Massachusetts. What are we receiving versus maybe some other schools? And I understand in some districts, you have reserve men and women that are coming in and helping. Like, what is it that we're actually receiving help with?
Okay, sure. Well, this was a bumpy start to this. We had every district was assigned a project coordinator. Our project coordinator was in Pennsylvania, which really isn't too helpful to us in Massachusetts. So we got a new project coordinator there from New Bedford. It's Purple Shield Medical. And it is EMTs and nurses and paramedics who come and they staff the test and stay sites every morning, and they do the scanning in of the samples. So today we had 3 people who came to the test and stay site. It was 2 EMTs and a paramedic, and then they went from school to school and scanned in the samples.
Okay, excellent, good information, thank you.
And I probably think I need to just echo what Greg said, that the nurses are working double time. Really, it's nonstop for them. This year seems a little bit worse for us because, like we like all of our things really neat and tidy, and it's not that way this year. There's a lot of moving pieces. And so there's a lot of work that they're doing above and beyond what their normal workday is. So I just am so grateful for the team we have.
Mary Ellen, just a quick comment to, I guess, also echo your comment about appreciation for the nurses. I know probably 4 or 5 months ago, I don't think we anticipated that the conditions would be like they are with COVID, but obviously they are. Would you say that the workload now is probably even greater than it was this time last year?
Definitely, it's much
that's
higher.
That's what I was thinking.
It's you have to figure we have all of the students in the school building with all of the mitigation factors. So it's all of where last year we only had half the students in at a time when we were doing all this. Our numbers last year, when I looked back to see the number of cases we've had at this point in time, we'd had 18 cases, and right now we have 106.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a lot of a lot of things that they're doing and trying to learn a new program, learn all, all of this new testing. When we learn of a positive case in school and have to contact trace and we have the ability to do a rapid test on those students. So it's getting the support there, and we don't get support from the state, like on the drop of a dime. We can't call them from New Bedford to come up in the middle of the day to do the test. So it's relying on the team that we have to do that, which is, they've just been amazing.
And a lot of translates to a tremendous amount of work. Anyway.
Roger,
Sorry.
can I just make one comment too? And I think Mary Ellen's done an outstanding job leading the team, but also I think they've had a great impact on making sure our students are in school with a test and stay program. Really hasn't impacted our ability to screen students, make sure they're in our classrooms to the greatest extent possible. I would say that tool is a game changer in terms of the work that nurses are doing. And we're very grateful to have that tool because it is having an impact on students in our classrooms. So I think that has been an outstanding program, one that we did not have access to last year.
So just to give you some numbers, we've done over 1,000 rapid tests since we started this program, the second week of September, I believe is when we started it. So that's 1,000 school days that students have been in school and not out of school that we've saved.
Okay, so we're still on COVID-19.
Unless I don't think I have any other updates unless people have more questions for me.
Mary Ellen, I would say comment that the medical advisory team continues to meet on a weekly basis. They continue to be our expert team behind the scenes, guiding us and giving us input and feedback. Again, we meet every Tuesday, and Mary Ellen has her questions answered and gets guidance. And again, it continues to be an invaluable tool for the district.
Yes, I echo all of that.
Thank you, Greg. I guess I think it's probably having you navigate through the new business makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So, and I just one more comment, and that is just Mary Ellen's work around the dashboard. So, Mary Ellen keeps the dashboard updated daily. So that is a great resource for the community to stay informed around what's happening across our 3 districts in terms of cases. And again, that is located on the district website. And when you go to the district website, you'll see the icon and all of the data is there. And again, Mary Ellen updates that on a daily basis.
And Mary Ellen, when I made the comment about this translating into a tremendous amount of work for the nurses, it's clear that it's translated into a tremendous amount of work for you too. So thank you for that.
Roger, I just have a quick question. I do have my hand up, but I think
Sorry.
that's okay. Is this a good time?
Yeah, why don't I see that? Oh, now I see it. I'm sorry. I had my cursor right on top of your invisible hand. I'm sorry.
No problem. This is kind of going back to something we talked about a few minutes ago, but just out of curiosity, I know it's not our school, but for vaccination percentages at the high school, how is that? And is there seeing the medical advisory team made me think of recommendations around masks for the high school and all of that. What's their percentage like there? And is there a prospect of changing the mask policy there?
Yes, so I'll answer that. So they have met the vaccination threshold as a school, faculty, staff, and students. It is on the next regional school committee agenda as a topic for discussion and debate. And we will be submitting the form to the state attesting that we've met that 80% threshold. And that just gives the school committee flexibility to hear the recommendations of the medical advisory team and decide when it feels most appropriate to lift the mask mandate at the high school, but nothing has been decided at this point.
Okay, so the MAT hasn't made a recommendation on that yet?
They're formulating a recommendation which will be presented at next Wednesday's school committee meeting.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
All right, so Roger, want to move on to,
Please. I saw Kim's hand go up, but then it went down. So we can move on. Thank you.
so next we have a transportation update. As the committee knows, the school districts have been involved in a multi-year study of trying to start school later at Algonquin Regional High School. And it really took a community effort across our 2 communities and 3 districts and 10 schools. And we've had to do a significant amount of rerouting of buses, which has impacted many of our families. We've had much success in terms of having high school students start later. And Keith Lavoie will provide an update of the data that we're seeing and some of the successes and also some of the challenges we're trying to solve. So Keith.
Thank you, Greg. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, thank you. And like Greg said, it has been a huge community effort. I also want to thank the principals and the school staff for their amazing work during this infancy stage of the implementation process. They have been hugely helpful, and certainly the flexibility of family and students. We've seen that a lot from day one, and even went back to August when we started to really beef up on the communication. So I also want to echo the appreciation of this has been one thing that has impacted everyone in one way, shape, or form, and we don't take that lightly. So we want to make sure that we are crossing every T and dotting every I. So for tonight's update, I will go back a little bit to describe why we are in the place we're at, also to let people know what our implementation plan is and the form of analysis that we are currently undergoing and what we perceive now as some of the takeaways from the data we have and what we expect as things we're going to try to overcome in the near and perhaps long future. So if we do go back, we want to understand why Greg did mention one of the main keys of a later start time of the high school was to make some of these gains. Certainly to improve academic performance, but from the research, we certainly learned that with a later start time, there are auxiliary benefits that will be studied and evaluated long-term. Obviously, at this point, these aren't ones that we have data on, but we'll be tracking that in the months and years to come to make sure that this implementation did have the long-term benefits desired. So back in the spring, I did a presentation on the implementation plan for starting with communication, then implementation, which we're obviously in the middle of now. And we're also kind of dovetailing with the analysis phase. That's a piece I'm really going to focus on and is the data collection that we have done and what it has shown us so far. So just as a reminder, these are the current start times. One of the key pieces to understand is to make this all work. Our Trotter and Algonquin students had to be bused together for the AM, and we were able to split them for the PM, which meant that 8 buses were assigned to Trotter and 7 Southborough buses were assigned to Algonquin for the PM routes. That certainly has helped performance, and we will be sharing a little bit more about that with the data that we collected. As we work down the line of the second tier, we see that the Neary, Woodward, and Finn students are bused together and have a cascading start time and end time to account for that difference. So when we go back to the communication plan, certainly with Greg's updates over the spring and summer, we did notify parents and the community about the start time change. And our communication for this really ramped up in August. And we did get a tremendous amount of positive feedback. This was something new for the district to do, where we personalized emails to families, which identified their student's bus number, the bus stop they were assigned to, and the estimated arrival and drop-off time. So this email master distribution, it was successful. We did start that on August 12th and then did another batch of emails 2 weeks later with some of the adjustments that were made. So we did find that that was an effective way of making sure that people were getting accurate information. The difference from the past was that families were told that the routes were posted on the website, and then they had to kind of hunt through the different routes to see what was possibly the closest stop to their home. What we discovered last year through COVID and the assigned seats and the different things that we had going on with COVID is that families were getting on the bus, not necessarily at the stop that we had them assigned to. So we knew that that was something going forward with the new implementation that we wanted to improve. So that's one of the reasons why we added this email, and it was very effective. We had a couple of families that said, I didn't realize there was a bus stop at my home. And because of the way things went, we were able to give them a nice present for the start of the school year. Coupled with that, we wanted to maintain a high level of customer service. I did want to give a huge thank you to Jean Pinto. She is our transportation assistant and has done a lot of work fielding phone calls and emails, responding to some excellent suggestions. Also, people with concerns and problems. But I want to give her a huge thank you for her efforts. She always will take the opportunity to listen and does a great job of following up with people. So we want to maintain that high level of responsiveness throughout the implementation and analysis process. And coming soon is a bus tracking app. We have sent out communications about that and have received a lot of inquiries as to the reason for the delay. There's two pieces of this I want to share. One is that NRT is the one that completely owns this app and the responsibility of pushing it out. They decided to go with a new app over the summer, and we were notified. But it has taken the first couple of weeks of school to make sure that our data is into their system accurately, and also that the communication that we send to families with accurate instructions is effective. And we have had parents piloting it. Some are in the audience this evening, and their feedback has been tremendously helpful. The other piece I wanted to add that I just learned last week is we are actually the first district that works with NRT that will be using this app. So genuinely, we are the adopter of the app, and we certainly hope it works well. So as you know, with any new piece of technology or how an app is rolled out, there will be bumps, but we've learned a great deal in the last few weeks, and I'm very close to pushing it out and making an announcement as far as an implementation plan. So that will be coming out soon, and we're hopeful will really help with the communication efforts to get that real-time information into parents and students' hands. We move to implementation. This is actually a set of the part of the plan that started last year. Once again, Jean Pinto, in collaboration with NRT, did a great job of our route development, really considering the time of when the starts of each of the schools were and how it was all going to work together with the different tiers. Obviously, that is a big puzzle. And what works on paper or what's put into the computer, you really don't know whether that's effective until it's actually done, because it does have an impact of human behavior. It's not just something that you can put in a spreadsheet and push go. So those are the pieces that we wanted to see how they performed. And so far, like Greg mentioned, we have had most of our routes are extremely successful, and some of them need tweaks as we move through this implementation phase. And that's something I'm going to be sharing a little bit later. Also, we want to make sure that this route development is not just done in isolation. We will continue to evaluate the routes and the ridership data to make some efficiency opportunities gained from different tweaks that we can make. And I don't want to understate the fact that our drivers and the community have been helpful. We've gotten some excellent feedback from folks that says, hey, listen, this makes more sense. When Jean evaluates it, I review it and we push play. We've had a lot of those in the last couple of weeks, and they certainly have helped things become a little more efficient and effective. But we do know that we do have some long routes and delayed routes that we're paying attention to. I do want to say that that is not uncommon for the start of any school year where adjustments need to be made. And we're actually pleasantly surprised at how few of these we do have, considering the large change and the magnitude of the change that we just underwent. And the last part of the implementation, and I think this is obviously the most important, I've certainly heard from committee members about this, is how are we going to analyze the data? So In the first couple of weeks, it is hard to really capture data because everyone is settling in. We really started some hard data collection in mid-September, and that has continued to date. Again, I really want to thank the principals, their administrative assistants, and teachers that have participated in the collection of arrival time data for both the AM and PM at each of the schools, ridership numbers as much as possible, and that's a simple counting system, and looking at the lengths of the route. So determining when a bus route started, when it dropped off students, and conversely in the afternoon where it picked up and then dropped off. But all of this information is extremely helpful as we work into the analysis phase. So speaking of analysis, this data review is something that we are doing ongoing and will continue to do for certainly the next few months as we evaluate how the implementation has gone. I can say on a daily basis, we are making tweaks to improve effectiveness and efficiency of the routes. We are continuing to hear from parents, students, and bus drivers about suggestions, and those have been extremely helpful to make the tweaks necessary. And I don't want to understate the impact that NRT have. They know the routes well. We have retained 100% of our drivers from prior years, which is amazing, especially considering the bus driver shortage that has been nationwide. I do want to compliment NRT and our buses, bus drivers, both in Northborough and Southborough. Our retention rate was extremely high, and that has proved to be a dividend for us with this implementation. So now diving into a little bit of the data, and in the next few slides, we will share some of the things that we are seeing. So this, the first column shows data from a report done by school bus consultants back in 2019 that showed the averages of our ridership. As you can see, it's not too different than what we are seeing now. One of the differences you will see is in the Southborough Elementary, and that certainly is because of a combination of Neary, Woodward, and Finn students together, and we are seeing that increase from 20 to 32, but that's not a fair comparison because the routes were done differently back in 2019. But we are seeing pretty consistent ridership across the board for all three school districts. So as we are beginning our analysis phase, these are some of the points that we're taking away with the information that we do have available to us now. All of our buses are on time to school. That was a key component. We wanted to make sure that the day was starting properly for all of our students, and that goes all the way from Trottier to Finn. And in order to do that, if you recall, we made an adjustment as a district and in collaboration with NRT to move the start of the routes about 10 minutes earlier. I know that was to many chagrin, but it did allow us to meet that first goal of making sure we're arriving to time. And I can say, and Principal Ryan has shared with me, that having the buses there for the start of school just really allows all of our students to begin the day on the right note. And that is a critical part of the work we want to do. And certainly, as we had projected and expected from the implementation planning, is that the length of the Neary, Woodward, and Finn route will continue to be evaluated, but they have been performing as expected. And lastly, with that, we do have, we're trying to make some tweaks to have our Trottier students arriving a little later. And we are planning to make some adjustments to make that happen, because all minutes in the beginning of the day, especially in the morning, are valuable, and there are potential opportunities to gain some valuable minutes there as well. So that's the portion of the AM routes that we wanted to highlight. For the PM routes, like I mentioned in the opening, the split of the Algonquin and Trottier routes for the PM has worked well. The ridership is up. Obviously, instead of having 15 buses to work with, we now have 8. But a huge thank you to Principal Hershek and Assistant Principal Mahoney for their work to make sure that those buses are getting out of the Trottier lot as soon as possible. That has been very effective. We haven't seen a dip in that at all, and it is really cascaded into helping the overall performance of the route. So it all starts at the beginning, and a huge thank you to Trottier for those efforts. The other thing that helps the routes, believe it or not, is a reduced traffic backlog at Algonquin in the afternoon. Thank you to the administration there. We made some adjustments to the traffic flow at Algonquin, especially in the afternoon, and that has allowed those buses to get to Neary in a more reasonable amount of time. So the combination of Trotter Algonquin out of the gate has definitely helped with the performance of the overall routes. And like I mentioned before, we are evaluating the length of the Neary, Woodward, and Fid routes and identifying opportunities for efficiency. This is something that we have been doing ongoing from the beginning. And we want to make sure that our buses that come from Algonquin and Trotter, after they drop off their students, are getting to Neary in the appropriate time. And we have identified a few buses that we'd like to make adjustments to make that more efficient, to get it closer to the dismissal time. We have made some improvements in that area, but we would like to make more as we move forward. And a huge thank you to Principal Valenti and the staff there for their patience during the process. So as we look to challenges, I know you've probably heard it. It has been all over the news, but the bus driver shortage has impacted Northborough and Southborough. On any given day, if one of our bus drivers calls in sick or is unable to perform their routes, we have to double up. So what that means is that a bus that does not have a driver, those stops have to be divided, typically between two other buses, which then impacts those two buses being later because they now have more students. Fortunately, we've avoided that having a huge impact. We haven't gone a day without, we've gone many days having all of our drivers and only have had a few that we've been short a driver or two. But a huge thank you to Jean and the responsiveness of her to get those routes divided up in a proper manner, and then the schools making adjustments accordingly. So we hope that those are few and far between, but that is definitely an obstacle that does impact our overall performance. Also, launching of the bus app, not knowing that we were the guinea pig, made this a little bit different. But we are making those adjustments, and I do see that we're going to be launching that in the next few weeks, definitely, hopefully sooner. And we want to continue to evaluate our arrival time of Trotter students in the AM. Students are getting there between 20 minutes and half hour in advance of the start of the school day, and that is something that we want to look at making adjustments going forward. And at the very end, the tail end of the entire process from 7 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, our late buses at Trotter, we would like to see them getting there at 3:45 or earlier, but because many of the buses aren't clearing in time, we aren't able to get them back to Trotter in a reasonable time. And a huge thank you again to the staff and the students for their patience as we work that out. So that is some of the detail work that Jean wants to get really into to see if we can shorten any of those routes, take advantage of some ridership opportunities so that we can get a couple buses back to Trotter in time that would be more suitable for a late bus launching. So those are the major takeaways as we get it, and the data that we've collected has been hugely helpful. We are reviewing it daily, and it is something that we will continue moving forward. So I think that concludes a huge amount of information for you, and I'm happy to go back and review anything or answer any questions you may have.
Keith, I know you have, you've identified some of the challenges. I know back on that first slide, and you don't have to go back to it. You used the word most. You said most of the routes, I guess I'd say are working out. So just to try to have you define that a little bit, would you say you're happy with 70% of the routes or 90% of the routes? Or, I mean, I know you've talked about some specific issues that you're dealing with, but kind of what's the overall sense we should take away?
Much better than expected, Roger. I think considering the magnitude of the change we went through and the newness of all of those routes, I think
Right.
we were very happy. It's hard to kind of aggregate that way overall because
Right.
on some tiers, buses are performing perfect and then they lag behind for the second tier or vice versa. So I would say there are certainly a handful of routes. There is no route that is problematic from beginning to end. That I will say. There are routes that have certain tiers that need to be improved, but I would say overall, we are better than 85% of them being effective and on time. And now we're in that tweaking phase, if I had to aggregate it for you.
Great, thank you. Kim, I see you're at the top of the hand up list.
Hey Keith, this is great. I just have a couple of questions. One is, have we considered bus substitutes in the way that we are doing school substitutes, like where we have somebody sort of like on deck? That's the first question. Second question is, can you talk a little bit about extracurricular buses? 'Cause I know it probably is a bigger issue with the high school, but I think that there's been an issue or two at the middle school too.
Sure, I can take both of those. First is I think I just signed up Kamali for her CDL license. So we'll welcome her into the fleet of substitutes that we'll take on. Honestly, it's a great question. Becky and I just had a call with NRT today to show that there's been a lot of creativity to see if more people can get trained. We are kind of working with them on the different type of ideas. If we could get substitutes on call, I had actually requested that back in April just to see the feasibility, and it's just a shortage everywhere. So we are not alone. There have been some really creative ways of doing it, but a recruitment has been one thing that we have tried to participate with NRT in giving certain types of NRTs working on incentives like paid training and things of that effect. So if anyone out there is interested in driving a big or a small yellow or a van, I know that they are willingly accepting applications. So Kim, in a perfect world, I would absolutely love to see that substitute on a daily basis. I actually thought of that this spring as a nice way to have that little safety net day in and day out.
Keith, can I just add a couple comments? I think first,
Sure.
that the CDL license obviously is kind of a barrier in terms of
Right.
driving a bus. So the state only offers certain tests over a period of time each year. So the state is trying to make those CDL licensing tests more frequent.
Mhm.
And then the other comment I would add is that we are in actually really good shape relative to other districts. The cadre of bus drivers that we have are longstanding bus drivers in our community who have driven our routes for many years. So we're fortunate that, we have a good relationship with our bus drivers. It's often the fact that if someone does get trained and gets their CDL license, they're actually shifted to a community where they don't have enough drivers to even meet the minimum number of routes.
Good point.
I see Kamali with her hand up, but I guess I would just quickly say when you take a look at some of the national news, the driver shortage is simply horrific. So we appear to be very, very fortunate, in our situation. And I also suspect that the difficulty in trying to build up an inventory of on-call drivers. I suspect that anybody that's willing to be on call probably has an opportunity to drive. So they can't be on call because they've actually got a route that they need to take. So I'm sorry, Kamali. Go ahead.
And I want, before Kamali, if you don't mind, I want to answer the second part of Kim's question about extracurriculars. Actually, the high school has been less impacted because their late buses are later. And when the buses are able to clear, they're able to get to Algonquin at the preferred time. That's different than middle school. We haven't been able to clear the buses early enough to get them back to Principal Hershek in time that we desired, but that is something that we've got to work on. The other piece of this, and the bus driver shortage has impacted our ability to get to interscholastic sports, especially if we have away games. And parents have been hugely helpful during that. And that is something that has impacted everyone in every community from the high school to middle school. So that is something that we monitor daily. Kamali?
So if you continue on that thread about the extracurriculars, how are you able to, there was a grid that you showed these are how many students are on the bus in the AM versus in the PM.
Mhm.
How do you keep track that there are less students maybe in the afternoon because they've gone to a rap program and extracurricular, they got picked up, whatever?
So what we are finding is that does have an impact, and that's interesting to see. Like for Trotter, for example, you will see more students in the afternoon. I think what impacted this is when we started collecting this data, many of the after-school programs hadn't begun yet.
Mhm.
So you will see that probably the AM numbers are more equal to the PM. Also, I think what we're finding, and Principal Hirschek can confirm that, is that we do have more drop-offs in the morning than we do have pickups in the afternoon. So that, coupled with the extracurriculars, is striking that balance. Gary, did I say that accurately?
In terms of pickup, the count's a little bit different because of the buses are condensed from 15 in the morning to 8 in the afternoon. So I would say it's tough to measure because of when we were doing the counts, we're only counting 8 buses in the afternoon. So the numbers are like up in the 30s. So, but I think if you're going to cut it in half, I'd say would be comparable.
Good point. Forgot about that.
Yep.
Okay. And okay, that's a good point, Gary. And I don't know if so that's something to track going forward. Put it in the footnote somewhere. So, well, one thing I just want to say, both for you, Keith and Jean, we're only like 5 or 6 weeks into the school year, and probably after the first 2, just like every other year that I've been in the school system, much of the volume and the more egregious commentary reduced. And I really empathize for kind of what you guys are being faced with. We're still in a pandemic, we're changing times, we're changing buses, there's no drivers. And I think that you guys have like kept a very great service level, like the terms you use throughout the presentation, responsiveness and customer service. I'm seeing that as a parent here that has students using the buses. So I just want to thank you and commend you for that. And I know that it's not kind of ending now, it's continuing. Right. So, and I think that, I over time, I've seen that kind of the feedback or the input from people that are facing challenges reduce. And hopefully that's because their solutions are being met or they know that something's underway. So that's great. I wanted to ask how, like the driver absentee, is there a time frame that NRT requests their drivers to give that notification in terms of, hey, I'm going to be out sick, or, this is a particular issue, they need to have that info by 5 a.m. How late are you and Jean receiving the info and then reacting to it?
They are, like I mentioned before, they are few and far between. So I think the drivers have been incredibly responsible, but things do happen. We have been given a couple of days notice in some cases and have been able to develop a plan over the course of 24 hours. And then I've gotten a call as late as 6 a.m. where we're going to be down a driver because someone's child woke up sick, which happens, in every place of work everywhere. So we've been impacted with both, but I'd say the latter is only happened once in the first 27 days of school or whatever number we're at. So that's pretty favorable. Considering what we've been enduring.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the app being rolled out.
Coming.
Wide. Thank you.
You're welcome. Katura?
Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick comment and say thank you for this very comprehensive report back on transportation. This was a lot of information and it was actually very helpful to see how it's all being implemented and some of the specifics of the challenges and how those are being addressed. And I know this was a big effort this year to get this rolling and not great circumstances. So appreciate all the work and I really appreciate the presentation. And I had some of the same questions that were already asked, so they've been answered. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Just want to acknowledge the hard work of Keith and Jean Pinto. A lot of planning and time and effort went into making this plan work as well as it has. and that they put a tremendous amount of time. So thank you, Keith. And I also want to just acknowledge the Transportation Parent Advisory that we have. They've been very helpful in terms of getting parent input and feedback to Keith and Jean. And also the Start Time Study Group continues to do its work. The work's not over. And we continue to meet and talk about how we can ensure that students are getting as much sleep as possible. So we'll continue to have reports throughout this year on how the implementation is working. But thank you.
That's a great point, Greg. And many of them have participated in the piloting of the app, which obviously has been extremely helpful. And we've given some pretty good feedback to NRT, and they've actually used a majority of the feedback that we've gotten to improve their documents and the interface. So it has been helpful and very much appreciated. So.
All right, Roger, I will move on to the next agenda item under new business, and that is Vision 2026. The 2021-2022 action plan. So I'll just provide some context, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Reinhorn. We'll give a brief overview of the action plan. And then the next item on the agenda also ties in, and that is the elementary school improvement plan, and the principals will present their plan this evening. So in terms of the action plan, as you know, in the spring of 20, the school committee voted Vision 2026, which is a multi-year strategic plan, which outlines the mission, vision, and core values. And it's also organized by 5 strategic objectives, which are empowering learners, healthy and balanced learners, equity of opportunity, educational leadership and learning, and finance and operations to support teaching and learning. Each year, the actions plan changes slightly depending on progress toward those goals, but the goals, the strategic objectives remain constant throughout the 5 years. So the NASA leadership team did spend time over the summer thinking about progress it made over the 2021 academic year. And we identified what the action steps are for 21-22. And this evening, Dr. Reinhorn will present a few highlights of those action steps and action plan. And then I'll just end by saying that when you hear from the elementary principals, when they present their school improvement plan, one of the goals of having a strategic plan is to align the school improvement plans with the strategic plan, and also align educator goals and school leadership goals in terms of the school improvement plans and the strategic plan. So you have this through line that runs through educator goals, principal goals, school improvement plans, and the strategic plan. So we're all kind of working in the same direction. So with that said, I will turn it over to Dr. Reinhorn, who will provide an overview.
Thank you, Greg. So as Greg said, I am just going to give some highlights. You have, the details, but just to shine a light on a few of the big items that we will be taking on this year, some of which are continuations and of past work. So in terms of empowering learners, this strategic objective focuses on instructional practice. And in this area, one of the action items has to do with building from our Portrait of a Graduate, which was our work that serves as our vision for our students and what we're trying to accomplish in terms of developing our students. And we're taking that to the next level and continuing to refine and build a shared understanding and a shared articulated vision of instruction and what high quality instruction looks like and sounds like in our classrooms and in our schools. Another highlight from empowering learners that you will hear more about from the principals is the digital literacy and computer science standards, which we are doing some work on as part of our action plan. In terms of equity of opportunity, which is the second strategic objective, this focuses on making sure that we are providing all students access to challenging and culturally responsive learning experiences and meeting each student where they are, meeting their individual needs. So 2 areas that I'd like to highlight in this strategic objective. One is the work that we're doing related to data and continuing to refine and build coherence and consistency around what data we are collecting for each of our students that can be used to understand their needs as individuals and as groups. And then using this as a foundation for refining our multi-tiered systems of support and looking at then, given that data, how are we responding to the needs of students? So that is one area of work. And the other related to equity of opportunity is the continuing work around culturally responsive practices. Everything from continuing to look at windows and mirrors and looking at our classroom libraries, our curriculum units, but also including our work with the equity audit, which is underway, as you know, and will help to inform our work in continuing to build an inclusive environment that celebrates the diversity of our community. In the third objective, healthy and balanced learners, this focuses on social, emotional, and physical well-being of our students. And the two areas to highlight here, one is the work we're doing around social emotional learning, which includes building a shared understanding of the CASTLE framework, which you'll hear more about in the school improvement plan presentations, and also preparing to collect baseline data around students' social emotional well-being. And then the other piece is around the health curriculum. And at a district level, we are beginning the work of taking stock of where we are in terms of our K-12 health curriculum, and anticipating that the state will be releasing new standards in this area in the near future. And so as we take stock of where we are, preparing for new standards and setting a path forward of where we want to go. In terms of educator learning and leadership, which is focused on really building the capacity of the people in our system, that strategic objective is really accomplished, woven throughout the other objectives. So as we do the work of healthy and balanced learners, of equity of opportunity and empowering learners, there is a constant focus on the professional learning and the embedded opportunities for development and capacity building. And the fifth strategic objective, finance and operations to support teaching and learning, is really about the foundation, how we develop, support, and operate sustainable, functional, and well-maintained schools. And so in this area, a lot of this work is led by Keith and his team, and Becky and her team, in really helping us to continue to assess in our action plan, continuing to assess the building needs, looking at the statement of interest and the next steps around NERI, continuing the implementation of Power School, and that is one of our foundational pieces of organizationally is our student information system around safety. So a number of different important action steps that really make all of the rest of our work possible. So that provides a few highlights, and many of these you're going to hear a lot more about as we move into the school improvement plans and hear from the principals, but I'm also happy to answer questions if there are any questions.
Molly.
Molly, yep.
Yeah. Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for the update. There was a lot of information in there. And so my point is not to minimize the importance of any other area, but one area that I'm concerned about is that equity audit and its participation. And I'm wondering if the organization that we're partnering to do it, are they able to help us send home things with families so that we can increase the participation? And here's why. I think that over the last year and a half, everybody's filled out 100 things for, and when you see the word diversity come through your screen, equity, inclusion. You've done it for work, you've done it for your religious institution, you've done it for other things. And so it kind of might just get pushed by the wayside, and you may even feel like, oh, my community is fine. So, I'm just not going to put that much into it. So I'm just concerned if there are some creative ways, and it doesn't have to be creative, basic, simple ways that we could put something in the backpack, scan this barcode, fill this out. We're all reading the electronic communications from the principals and Greg, but many often just choose to pass through anything that's going to take more than 5 minutes, right? So
yeah. So Greg and I were on a call with the consultants today, and that was one of the things we discussed was increasing participation rates. And I think you're right that there's some fatigue around surveys. And we did talk about, the principals are helping us so that it's not just coming through Greg's emails, but it's in their newsletters. And we talked about even potentially whether having teachers included if they have weekly newsletters, that there are some parents who are more likely to read something from the teacher than they are from the principal. No offense, principals. And really just trying to figure out the different tactics. The other thing to keep in mind is that the survey is one of the ways that we're collecting information, but not the only way. So we will be doing student surveys with the older students with middle school and high school, and those will be done in school, and that will have a significant impact on participation rates. We will also have focus groups, both for students, for faculty. We also have generated a random list of families that the consultants will be calling on the phone, and they've done this with other districts with a lot of success, where they will call a household that is, part of our school community, introduce themselves, and conduct a very brief, just a few minutes interview by phone. And so that'll be another tactic to get, and in some cases, those will be done in other languages other than English. And that will be another tactic for getting input. I also think we just need people to spread the word and, encourage others to take the time to fill out the survey.
Great. Thank you.
Right, Stephanie, thank you.
All right, so move on to the next agenda item, which is connected to the Vision 2026, and that is the school improvement plan. And a year and a half ago, there was a committee to really evaluate the authoring of school improvement plans and the timeline of our school improvement plans. And one of the goals was really to try to think about how the school improvement plans can really drive the work that's happening in our schools around improvement. As a result of the committee's work, they presented a new timeline to move forward with in terms of school improvement plans, which basically aligned all of the elementary principals plans on the same cycle and over a 3-year period rather than a 2-year period. And again, with the thinking that to achieve some of the ambitious goals that are set, more time is needed to move forward. Just like the strategic plan, each of the school improvement plans have annual action plans that will be updated, but the goals will remain constant throughout the duration of the plan. So over the past year and a half, our elementary principals and Gary have been working really hard on authoring school improvement plans. In this year, it's a little bit different. Instead of having 4 individual school improvement plans, the elementary principals worked collaboratively to develop kind of a unified plan that they'll work on together, again, with a goal of having coherence around the work that we're doing as a district. So elementary principals will present their work this evening, and then in November, the Charter Middle School will present its work at the November meeting. So I will turn it over to the elementary principals.
Thank you. Stephanie, if you could share our presentation. Thank you so much. And thanks for your help with this tonight, Stephanie. So I'm going to start the process for us. I just want to say that Greg and Stephanie's update on the action plan dovetails nicely to what we'll be sharing with you this evening. And Clayton, Steve, and I are very excited to present our work to the committee tonight. For a long time, we sought ways to align our school improvement plans across the elementary schools, knowing that by doing so would further demonstrate our shared philosophy of the importance of the collective ownership of all students who come through our doors. And that's why we feel so positive and are so ready to launch our plans. The Southborough Elementary principals would like to thank the school committee for the opportunity to present our finalized plan tonight. And it really highlights the collaborative partnerships with the Northborough principals, our individual school councils, our staff within each building. And we want to thank Superintendent Martineau and Assistant Superintendent Reinhardt for their guidance through this 1.5 year long process. Stephanie, if you could change, thank you. So at the core of our work, as Superintendent Martineau and Assistant Superintendent Reinhardt shared, is our students and putting each of them in the middle of all of our decisions. So throughout the process of developing our school improvement plans, we continuously revisit the district's work relative to the portrait of a graduate and who we want our students to be as they move through our grade levels from pre-K through graduation. And this helps us to stay anchored to the district's work and align our thinking and planning, because we want our students to be collaborators, socially and civically engaged, critical and creative thinkers, communicators, growth-oriented, and healthy and balanced learners. So the goals and action steps within each of our plans aligns directly to our core values and attributes of our students. If you could change the slide, Stephanie.
So as Superintendent Martineau mentioned before, the groundwork in creating our 21-24 school improvement plans was really laid several years ago. To begin the work, we first took stock and examined our past practices around school improvement plans, then researched different models from across the Commonwealth. This helped us to identify specific goals that would guide our work in plan creation moving forward. We wanted to create plans that were aligned to the strategic objectives in the district improvement plan. This alignment will focus on the work and create a shared vision for improvement. We wanted to align the timing of the plans for all 10 schools in the district and provide ample opportunities for reflection and adjustment within the plan duration. And finally, we wanted to create an environment where schools and district colleagues could collaborate and reflect on shared goals. This will also help us to align professional development opportunities for all educators. Next slide, please, Ms. Reinhardt.
Okay, so this visual may look similar to something that was shared when we were launching the district's strategic plan. So similar to our approach in developing that strategic plan, we use the Planning for Success model from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education as a framework for this school improvement planning process. The components are listed in the dark blue on the left-hand side, and some brief explanations are on the right-hand side. Under mission, vision, and core values, we have all adopted the district's mission, vision, and core values, again, highlighting the importance of alignment between all of our schools. The theory of action is an if-then statement that explains each school's best thinking about how they intend to achieve the goals set forth in each of our plans. Within district objectives, these are overarching goals for improvement, so the what and the why, and these are embedded within the strategic plan and will be used by all schools. Strategic initiatives, each school will develop projects and programs where we will undertake to support the district's strategic objectives. Outcomes are both short-term and long-term ways to measure progress and effectiveness. And finally, action plans are specific actions each school will take unique to their learning environment and the individual needs of all of our learners. Next slide. So questions we consider, and this is from a book that we all read. I'm losing my train of thought, but it's Learning by Doing by Dufour and Dufour. And as a NASA team, we engaged in a book study, and 4 questions that came directly from this book I'm going to speak about. But these questions help to guide our process, but these are also questions that we consider when we get together with our teachers, our teacher teams, our PLCs. So the first question is, what do we want students to know and be able to do? And this guaranteed aligned curriculum across the grade levels, vertically from one grade level to the next. So it includes our Common Core standards, our learning targets, and standards in students' work and rigor. How will we know that they've learned it? Well, we'll use our assessments, observations, and data to monitor student learning, such as common assessments, quick checks for understanding, formative and summative assessments. And how will we respond when some students do not learn? Teachers collaborate to understand student learning needs and respond. This happens in our PLCs. This happens at when teacher teams collaborate, or grade level teams or vertical teams work together through data analysis. We engage in reteaching, classroom interventions, specialist or tutor interventions, and also home connections. And how will we extend and enrich learning for students who have demonstrated proficiency? And that would be through accelerated or enrichment, whole class or small group, individual differentiation, and student choices. Next slide, please.
In our plans, we're focusing on 3 strategic objectives taken from the district strategic plan. These objectives are empowering learners, equity of opportunity, and healthy and balanced learners. As mentioned previously, it was through collaborative reflection with the other elementary principals in Northborough that we decided on these goals. We recognize that having school-focused goals in these areas provides additional support to the collective work already in progress by the district. In addition, we're able to be more efficient and effective in supporting student learning, strengthening the focus of our work done by our staff, have a more efficient use of district resources, and most importantly, yield greater positive student outcomes. Next slide, please.
So our first goal is to provide opportunities for students and educators to use technology to solve problems, learn, and communicate. So the first goal focuses on the empowering learners in the digital area, in the area of digital literacy and computer science, curriculum, and instruction. We want educators and students to be equipped to communicate effectively across a wide range of audiences, problem solve using innovative solutions, and learn through the use of and aid of technology. Our work this year is to deepen our understanding of the DLCS standards and their current use in our daily work across content areas. Over the past 2 years, educators, students, and families have all found innovative ways to connect with each other and the content. We will leverage some of the great work that has been accomplished and build on our experience. We will evaluate the effectiveness of current programs and determine ways to improve, enhancing the learning experience for all students. Staff will collaborate to design and share lessons that integrate digital literacy and computer science standards. Next slide, thank you. So this slide talks about the digital literacy and computer science standards, the DLCS standards that are going to be referenced in our first goal. So digital literacy and computer science knowledge, reasoning, and skills are essential in the 21st century and to prepare students for innovative and creative careers. The DLCS standards include core concepts in 4 strands. Those are listed on the slide. The standards integrate practices necessary to be successful in a technological world. Defined in the standards are the skills and types of performances students should be able to demonstrate as a result of this learning. The DLCS standards complement other Massachusetts frameworks and follow a coherent progression of skill acquisition through the K-12 educational experience. They overlap in meaningful ways and with standards from other academic disciplines. It is our goal to create opportunities for students to better apply and learn digital literacy and computer science skills across content areas. Next slide, please. So these are some pictures from Woodward, Finn, and Neary. The first picture in the bottom right is from Neary. And here we have a teacher recording a student reading a passage aloud. This is used to assess fluency as well as develop collaborative reading goals. At Finn, students are introduced to technology in preschool through the use of iPads. The photo on the upper right is a kindergarten student using an iPad to solve the missing number. The photo on the upper left is a first grade teacher showcasing the interactivity of technology through our Envision math program. The image on the bottom left is from Woodward, and it shows students working collaboratively through technology. With one-to-one device distribution, students have equal access to technology in school and while at home, and they're able to collaborate and problem solve together. In the photo in the top center is of a student practicing their coding skills through the use of the Root coding robots, which I've talked a lot about over the years. I'm really proud to have that at Woodward. So to kind of wrap up this, our first goal around the DLCS standards, I know I speak for all principals when I share how amazing our Southborough teaching staff have been embracing technology over the last 2 years, well before that, but especially over the last 2 years, and as they continue to find innovative ways to use technology moving forward.
Thank you. Goal 2 is to foster culturally responsive and inclusive classroom communities and school environments that provide equal access to learning for all students and meet their individual needs. And this focuses on equal opportunity, equity of opportunity. So equity in the classroom means making sure every student has the resources and support they need to be successful. In an equitable classroom, individual factors do not hold students back from reaching their full potential. Next slide, please. As stated, equity in the classroom means making sure every student has resources and supports to be successful. This begins with teachers getting to know students and to providing classroom communities that are inclusive. We work to find ways to accommodate student learning styles and differences as we plan our work with students, considering each uniqueness as we go. Currently, there are many initiatives across our schools which align with the action steps within the school. For example, teachers have built multicultural classrooms and will continue to audit their books to ensure their literature selections are representative of a wider variety of cultures representing all of our students. To help with building our libraries, last year, we received a collection of diverse titles from a generous grant written by NSPAC. We will continue to build in Windows and Mirrors professional development for educators, and instructionally, we are identifying more systems for collecting and analyzing our students' performance. The leadership of the coordinators in social emotional learning, literacy, and math will also support this work in our schools. Next slide, please. So these are some pictures we'd like to share. At Finn, the focus has been on inclusivity in preschool through grade 1, and students are asked to think about their unique qualities and the aspects that make each person different. This photo is of these two photos are of preschoolers, two preschoolers reading a book, The Skin You Live In by Michael Tyler. And students learn through classroom discussions and activities the themes of diversity and acceptance, and to recognize and celebrate the uniqueness in themselves and others. And that's the picture in the lower left-hand corner. And at Woodward, the story Say Hello takes students on a journey through an American neighborhood and highlights the many different ways to say hello in languages around the world. Students throughout the building participate in this activity and share the ways they say hello. This activity celebrates diverse languages we have in Southborough and gives all students an opportunity to share their culture, language, or heritage. Here are 3 pictures of ways they say hello. So those are the 3 pictures on the bottom right-hand side. And then at Neary, one area we are focusing on is the district's monthly themes. In observance of National Hispanic Heritage Month in World Language, students learned about Hispanic people who have had a great impact both in the United States and across the world. And in the second photo, the one in the middle, is a photo of Miss Valverde Collardo, who is our world language teacher. She is teaching students classroom vocabulary words in Spanish. Each student is provided an opportunity to demonstrate their understanding of the vocabulary word, either by making a vocabulary card, using index cards, or on a Google slide. And each has the word, definition, and a picture, and it becomes part of their world language interactive notebook. Next slide, please. The second component of our goal includes developing and implementing a coherent system for collecting and using student learning data. And this is connected to meeting the needs, ensuring that we're meeting the needs of all students. Starting with the students in mind, we want to put the tools in place that we have to understand them as people and as learners, so that we are more informed and strategic in our planning, instruction, activities, interventions, and enrichments. Using data is critical in the work we do every day because it allows us to understand our learners' strengths and areas of challenges. And then we're able to differentiate our instruction in the classroom to meet those needs. We're continually refining our practices with educators so that we are more informed about how we do this work, both collectively and on our own. Systems for collecting and analyzing our student progress are in place, and educators examine our learners' strengths and challenges by meeting together to analyze the data and make decisions on meaningful instruction as a result of that analysis. At Woodward, to meet the reading needs of all students, the district will be using several literacy programs and screening tools. The DIBELS 8 screener tool is a set of procedures and measures for assessing the acquisition of literacy skills. DIBELS will be used with all students across the district K-2. The staff has also been trained and in some cases retrained in Project READ. Project READ is a language arts program that focuses on 3 areas of literacy instruction: phonics, reading comprehension, and written expression. At Finn, from preschool up, teachers conduct a wide variety of assessments on students to establish baseline data. The data is used to formulate differentiated instruction strategies to meet the varying needs and to help all of our students make progress and achieve grade level proficiency. Teachers across all buildings now are using our newly developed data collection tool for ELA and math. And at NERI during our PLCs this month, we have focused on calibrating our writing scoring practices using protocols from the DataWise process. Next slide, please.
Goal 3 of our plan is part of the strategic objective 3.0, and that is to develop and implement a coherent and systematic approach to social emotional learning within and across our schools pre-K to 12. We chose this goal because we recognize the importance of supporting the whole child, and that social emotional learning is truly the foundation for all other learning to take place. Research tells us that qualities like perseverance, active listening, empathy, good decision-making help our students succeed both academically and in life. In addition, research conducted by the RAND Corporation shows that when elementary students are actively participating in evidence-based social emotional programming, student achievement scores on formal assessments increased by an average of 11 percentile points. And pro-social behaviors such as kindness, sharing, and empathy increased as well, as did improved student attitudes towards school and reductions in psychological disorders such as anxiety, depression, and stress. Also, the Department of Education and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has established standards for social emotional learning for preschool and kindergarten for voluntary use by districts and schools, and is close to releasing guidance and recommendations for grades 1 through 3. Even though the standards established are only for pre-K and kindergarten, they bring attention to the critical areas of development and learning that, when supported and reinforced, positively impact all student outcomes. In addition, these standards provide a base for us to strengthen our curriculum our instruction, our assessments, our professional development, and our family engagement. Next slide, please. Connections. We believe that in order for any kind of social emotional learning work to begin, there needs to be a solid connection between staff and students. And we're proud to know that our staff makes connections with our students and their families at the beginning of every school year. Making genuine, trusting connections with our students helps reduce student and parent anxiety and makes students more available to learn. We also know that when students have a trusting connection with adults and others in their school, they are more likely to discuss their feelings and seek help when needed. Here are just a few examples of how we're continuing to make connections with our students. At Finn, we believe in the 3 C's, that is connections, culture, and climate. Through student-teacher connections, develops a school culture, which are the behaviors, the norms, the values, all within a school. And from this culture results a school climate. The more connections between students and staff, the more positive the school climate. At Woodward, as part of establishing a classroom community, teachers spend the time during the first days of each year to create classroom rules and general expectations. This provides all students with an opportunity to have a voice in creating the rules that will lead to safe and supportive classroom climates. When this is done as a group, it helps to create clear expectations for all. And at NERI, each fall, NERI deploys a student survey to all students. Getting to know students in the first weeks of school creates a strong foundation for the remainder of the year. The questions asked are designed to yield information on how students are feeling, connected to their peers, to their adults in their learning environment, as well as what areas students may be confident in or challenged by. Staff also ask about interests students may have outside of school, and if there's anything that they'd like to share with Principal Valente. The NERI staff uses this data throughout the year to strengthen student-to-student and teacher-to-student relationships. Next slide, please. We are fortunate to have Dr. Jennifer Lipton O'Connor, our new Director of Social Emotional Learning, leading our work in the area of social emotional learning across the district. As an established educator in our district with a wealth of knowledge in the area of SEL, Jennifer brings great insight and expertise to this area and is a tremendous resource as we focus on this goal. Through our work at the district level, in the school level, we'll begin to work to identify current evidence-based practices that develop social emotional learning competencies for all of our students and staff. Each of our schools has had and continues to have a variety of SEL programs and practices in place. As part of our work, we will inventory these program resources and have discussions about their effectiveness on yielding positive results for our students. Our goal is to determine which evidence-based resources can support all of our learners. Some examples on this slide of programs already in place across the district are Responsive Classroom, Open Circle, PBIS, or Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, and Second Step program. Next slide, please. One major focal area of our work in SEL has been and will continue to be the work done by the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, also known as CASEL. CASEL's mission envisions all children and adults as self-aware, caring, responsible, engaged, and lifelong learners who, when working together, can achieve their goals and create a more inclusive and just world. As we work with the CASEL framework, we will foster knowledge, skills, and attitudes across the 5 areas of social and emotional competencies. These areas are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. We'll also be establishing equitable learning environments and coordinate practices across 4 key settings that support students' social, emotional, and academic development. These settings are our schools, our classrooms, our families, and our communities. Next slide, please. We'll be continuing our work in SEL with establishing a foundation that begins at Finn, where students are beginning to learn about their emotions and the feelings of others. And that foundation will be built upon at Woodward, where students will work on such themes as collaboration, support, and teamwork, and further built upon at Neary, where the themes of stamina, growth mindset, and the impact one's feelings and behaviors have on a collective goal are all worked on. Next slide, please. As we start this collective journey on our elementary school improvement plan goals, we're mindful that each school is unique and each step or rung on the ladder towards reaching our goal may look different, but our work is all connected. The pacing of a 3-year school improvement plan provides us with time to reflect, time to analyze, and adjust our action steps embedded in each goal. As Kathleen mentioned at the onset of this presentation, we are very excited to start this work. And we thank you for your attention, and we're ready for any questions and comments.
Can I unmute? There I am. Sorry, let me start with a comment. I don't know if I was in and out when I was trying to unmute. I thought this was an excellent presentation, but in addition to being an excellent presentation, I really liked your approach. You know, I think the approach really demonstrated the collaboration, you know, in the school improvement plans over all 4 of our elementary schools. So I thought that was really creative. Couture, I see you have your hand up.
I do. So thank you so much for that. So it's really funny because I knew we were aligned. I knew that the school improvement plans were going to be aligned for the 3 schools, but I hadn't envisioned sort of one big combined plan. And I think the way you did it makes so much sense. Because it's just, in a way, it's sort of happenstance about the way our town is set up, that we're in different buildings, but it's really, you know, sort of one consistent sort of trajectory of education that the kids are going through. And so I think that just makes so much sense. And it's so clear that there was some wonderful collaboration that happened, and there's a great plan in place. So I thought that was really wonderful. I did have a couple of quick questions. One is that, so the person who's leading the SEL work across the district, is that also including Trotter and Algonquin? Is it sort of one big scheme happening now with SEL?
Greg, I don't know if you want to take this because of Jen's.
Yes. So as Clayton mentioned, Jennifer Lipton O'Connor is the pre-K through 12 director. So she's bringing coherence across the experience for students pre-K through 12. So she also is working with Trotter and Algonquin.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. So it'll be consistent across the entire spectrum. So that's great. And then now that it's a sort of a 3-year plan, or maybe we always had sort of extended plans, but will there be a schedule for updates along the way? So maybe like an annual update on how the plan is going, or just wondering how we envision that going forward.
Yeah, so the idea is that each year, the elementary principals will present their success the prior year and the action plan for the upcoming year. And again, that will be a combined presentation with all of the elementary principals working together.
Great, thank you so much.
Anything else? As I said, I really liked the way you presented this. It was very effective. Kamali?
I'll just add to that, at the end of the presentation, you said you're looking forward to getting started with this, but I've experienced all of the elementary schools with my family, and I already see the connections happening, especially that last slide where we talked about, the framework that we want them to learn in FID, Woodward, NERI, and then Chartier. Maybe I'm just looking into too deep, but I see the flow. I see the common themes happening already. One other observation was that when you talked about demonstrating these core values that we want to impart on them, I like that I didn't hear from you just kind of talking about testing. I didn't hear anything talk about MCAS. I know that is one method as a tool, but it wasn't the primary one. And I think that's a good reflection on what I'm looking for as a school committee member and a parent, that's not the only way that we're assessing their learning and how we're doing as a district. And so I guess just a little bit of one question, those were comments. One question is, so how has seeing the one data point, which we had from the report, the MCAS report, how has that affected you as principals and the teachers in terms of seeing some decline there? Did it make you kind of just want to go harder, show that this was just blip in time due to everything that happened? What is your takeaway from after reading that?
I can jump in if you want. Or Kathleen, did you want to go?
You're muted, Kathleen.
Yep. I just wanted to say that every piece of data can provide us with information to use. And this was a unique year, given how the MCAS, what our school learning looked like, whether it was remote or whether it was in school. And so for us as a school, we're looking at the data, we're trying to understand it and take from it some important points, but it's not the sole thing that we focus on. And that's every year. I mean, we think about, our first job is to make sure that our students feel safe and feel academically safe, socially safe, create a learning environment where they can feel comfortable and really challenge themselves individually. And in order for them to be available for the learning, they need to feel that safety. And so I think last year was a very unique year for all of us. And even the way we rolled out MCAS was unique. And so although the information is important, and of course we will look at it and we will analyze it as best as we can and learn from it as best as we can, I think we just have to take into consideration what our year looked like.
Yeah.
Stephanie, did you want to add to that?
You said it so well. I wasn't sure I needed to add. The one thing I will add is that, there's a lot of data that's still being gathered, that, we want the kids to settle into school and teachers are assessing students. MCAS data is still being analyzed. There's lots of different data points, and we don't stop as the year goes. We just are constantly analyzing the data in front of us. But in terms of the MCAS itself, we will be presenting more information at a future school committee meeting. So we'll be able to dive into that more deeply.
Stephanie, if I could just add that I think that some of the screening tools and the programs that we talked about in our school improvement plan, that I think gives us more valuable data because it's real time, it's the students in front of us, and it provides kind of a glimpse or a snapshot and gives us some clues on how we can support them within the school year, as opposed to looking at data that's a year old and those students have moved on from Woodward. So I think investing in the measures that we have, especially around ELA and with our math diagnostic screener, I think that's going to give us much more valuable data.
Thanks.
Molly, the only thing I would add is that, everything's relative. So again, it was a unique year, but relative to the state's performance, our Southborough students performed very well. So I think that, I think teachers have a lot to be proud of. Students have a lot to be proud of in terms of the year they endured and the results they did receive from MCAS. And again, Stephanie will be sharing that information in a more deep dive at the November or December meeting.
If I could add, I think parents probably have a lot to be proud of too, because I
And
think this was
parents,
probably,
absolutely.
this was probably a year that parents were a lot more involved,
Yeah.
in the education than a normal year. So really kudos to all parties.
So just one more update. So on Friday, we are mailing the parent guardian reports for MCAS for those students who participated in the assessment. So those are being mailed home Friday, and parents should expect those in the mail either Saturday, Monday, or Tuesday. Right. Looks like no more questions for the elementary principals. I just want to thank the principals. I think that they've worked tremendously hard, collaborating and doing some deep thinking, making connections, thinking about the great work that's already happening in our school that they want to move forward. And they've done an outstanding job, and also commend our teachers for providing input and feedback and helping with kind of set these goals. So I'm excited to see the work moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right, so next on the agenda for new business is legislative update, and I have no updates this evening. And we just, for number 6, MCAS discussion. So we just covered the topics we were going to share about MCAS, which was basically parents can expect information in their mailboxes in the next few days. And Dr. Reinhorn will provide a more in-depth report in an upcoming school committee.
I thought the legislative update was the buffer in between the school improvement plan and the MCAS discussion, but it looks like everything was already covered. So we are now moving on to the MASC joint conference. And we're going to look for a volunteer. Let me explain this a little bit. The conference is scheduled for, because we need a delegate and we need to vote a delegate. And I would certainly be happy to be the alternate, just in case there was a problem. But I would appreciate it if somebody would step up to be willing to be the delegate. That's the person that carries our votes into the conference. I think it's scheduled for the November 6th. And unless I am incorrect about this, well, you can participate virtually. I don't know if they actually shut off the physical attendance or not, or in-person attendance, but the delegate can attend virtually. The way I read the March 22nd communication, it looks like it's 3:15 p.m. Am I reading this correctly, Greg, as far as the potentially voting on the resolutions and things like that?
Yes, that is accurate, Roger.
Yeah, so you'd need to, kind of reserve some time, 3:15 p.m. on to carry forward the votes for our committee, to the resolutions. And I think there'll be an election of officers too, if I'm not incorrect on that. So that's really the voting requirements. Any questions, or, I'm prepared to be overrun with volunteers.
Roger, I do have my hand up. I was just going to say that so I did it last year remotely. Unfortunately, I'm not available that day this year, but I was just going to confirm what you were saying, which is that it's all remote. You log onto a Zoom. There's no video, and you vote. They had a really great sort of remote voting system set up where you log into it on a device, your phone or wherever you are. And every time something's up for a vote, you tap the button that indicates how your committee is voting. I think it took might have gone on there were a couple of issues that were discussed quite a bit. So, it was like 3 hours all together last year. But I think I'm sure that can vary by the year. But so it was just being present and on the Zoom, but it wasn't a ton of participation other than voting, or if you wanted to contribute to the discussion.
And I know you were going to say it was one of the most fun experiences you had the entire year, right? So
it was an amazing way to spend a November afternoon. It was really wonderful.
and you'll be done by dinner time.
That's right. Well, yes, that's actually true.
So either Kim, Kamali, or Jen, are any of you willing to take 3 hours on that Saturday afternoon? As I say, and if you quote volunteer for this and you run into a last minute problem, I think I'd be able to stand in. Hopefully you won't run into a problem, but I would back you up. Kim,
All right.
I see you're
I'll do
unmuted.
it. Yeah, I'll do it.
All right. Well, thank you. We can talk more about that. There's a form we have to send in. I think the resolutions are in your packets. And I don't know, did we, now everything, the document that we have in the packets is, was from a number of months ago when they announced this. And we still have, I guess, another month to put any resolutions that we might want to put in as a committee, but I'm not sure that we normally do that. I think most of those resolutions are put forward by the by MASC. Am I correct about that? And
Yeah,
that's my experience.
They meet typically in June and
Right.
decide on the resolution. So this year there are 9 resolutions that will be discussed at the meeting.
And does this just drive their advocacy, basically?
Correct. So basically
Exactly.
sets the agenda for MASC. And Roger, if I may, there are a few resolutions that I just would like to highlight that I think are of importance to our communities. So the first resolution, and they're all actually quite good in terms of
Please.
the resolutions this year. But the number 4 is a recess and time on learning. So I think I froze for a second. So number 4 is time on learning. So there's a requirement from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education around time on learning. Recess does not count towards time on learning. And the resolution actually, am I frozen?
Well, you're bouncing around.
You're good.
A little bit. So it looks like the connection is just a little
Unstable.
not as solid as.
So basically resolution 4 supports to count recess as time on learning.
Yes.
All right. Resolution number 6.
Got it.
Resolution number 6 is MCAS. It's basically looking at alternate means to demonstrate academic achievement other than a high stakes standardized assessment. So looking at alternative ways for students to demonstrate their understanding. Resolution 8 is electric school buses. So again, having an initiative across the state to have electric school buses. And then resolution 9 in our district, as you know, we've the regional school committee voted to retire the Native American mascot, the tomahawk. And resolution 9 really prohibits the use of Native American mascots across the Commonwealth. So it's, again, a topic that is current to our district.
Okay, question about that? Well, I think we do need to vote to appoint the delegate
Okay.
from the committee. I don't see any questions, so I guess maybe even you need to vote the alternate. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I would entertain a motion, presuming that I would entertain a motion for someone to nominate Kim as the delegate and me as the alternate to the,
Okay, I'll take that, Roger.
yeah, the Mass Annual Business Meeting for 2021. Go ahead, Kamali, thanks.
I make a motion that Kim Tollender be named as the Southborough School Committee delegate for the MASC 2021
Business meeting, I think.
business meeting. So
Does that receive a second?
Second,
I think you can add me in as alternate to that same vote if you want.
Okay, I'll edit the motion then. I'll make a motion, revise it to say that Kim Tollender be named as the delegate and Roger Challen be named as the alternate.
I'll set that revised.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Nothing other than say thank you, Kim.
And I'll say that also.
And to
So
Russ.
roll call vote. Jennifer, Kamali, Katura,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that is unanimous. Number 8 is the Neary Statement of Interest update. Mr.
Yes.
Martineau.
Sure. So just a brief update. We did receive communication from the MSBA. As the committee knows, in June, we submitted a statement of interest for Neary School for the MSBA core building program. We received the communication a few weeks ago, and basically they're going to do a senior study, which basically a senior study is visits are conducted by members of the MSBA staff and senior architects with extensive knowledge of building systems and educational programs. So that will take place on October 25th. There'll be an hour meeting, and it will include school committee members, Principal Valente, Keith Lavoie, Town Administrator Mark Purple. And then they'll also do a walkthrough on October 26th. And again, it's not an invitation into the MSBA process, but it is an important step and a good sign that they're taking the statement of interest that was submitted seriously. So more information will be communicated after the senior study visit on the 25th and 26th.
Okay. Old business, no master plan update, and I'm presuming that the before and after extended day program, I know that we're doing a feasibility study, but I think we're not really expecting the results of that until December. Is that correct? We're still?
That is correct. So
I'm not sure there's much is there an update of any kind or not?
Yeah, so I'll just share, Roger, a few highlights. So Becky, Keith, and I put together a project plan for the extended day feasibility study. And, we're spending time researching other communities, having conversations with communities where the school district has taken on the extended day program. We've reached out to Ashland, and I know Keith and Becky have some other conversations with other districts lined up. We're working with legal counsel to see about, are there any legal issues that we need to consider in terms of launching our an extended day program. We're looking at the insurance requirements. In terms of the finances, we're developing a financial plan, analyzing, we're working with SCDP to analyze its financials, and we're coordinating with the town, and we're examining accounting systems and thinking about vouchers. And we're also spending time around programmatic design, working on developing handbook, connecting with student support services and really using student support services and Marie Allen and her expertise, looking at staffing levels, establishing a parent advisory committee to help us look at this feasibility, and then looking at parent feedback. And then obviously principals have a key role in this. So this work is well underway. We're hoping to have the data collected by November. And in November, Keith, Becky, and I in the central office leadership team will consider the data that we have to make a recommendation to the school committee in December. I will share that we've had a number of meetings with SCDP and the president of the board, as well as some of the staff members, to think creatively of how other communities have had parent advisory really take a key lead role in running a school-based extended day program. So we're thinking outside of the box, and more information will be shared and presented to the committee at the next month. And then in December, we'll give a final recommendation.
Greg, since you opened the door, I'll just try to sneak in a tiny bit. You said that that the group has talked with some districts that have taken this on to run themselves. Is that correct?
That is accurate.
Did you get far enough with them to determine if, in general, they were happy with that transition?
Yeah, Becky, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, so Keith and I actually most recently spoke with Ashland Public Schools, and they are, the director that we have there is thrilled with the fact that it is part of the school community. It makes it very seamless for families, and it seems as though it's a great relationship to have it under the umbrella of the schools versus it being an outside agency.
Thank you very much. Other questions? All right. So we're getting to the superintendent's report to the committee next. Is it anyone you want to excuse, Greg, at this point?
Yeah, I think if it's the will of the committee, if the principals could be excused, that'd be outstanding.
Thank you again, principals, for the school improvement plan report tonight. It really was excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening.
Thank you.
Everyone but Clayton. Clayton has to stay.
But I also want to give Stephanie credit for kind of managing the whole presentation in the background there as we move through it.
Yeah.
Not only managing the presentation, she was instrumental in guiding the work to get us there. So
I have no doubt, by the way.
It's true. We've waited a long time for this.
Right.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
principals.
All right, are you ready for the superintendent's report?
We are. I guess you're starting with enrollments, and I guess I would certainly ask you to navigate through that report also, if you would, please.
Sure. So in the packet are the enrollment reports for October. The total enrollment for October as of October 6th is 1,149. And if you look at in the packet, I included the number of new enrollments and withdrawals. So Neary had 16 new students enroll and 10 students withdraw. So we had +6 students at Neary. Woodward had 18 new students and 8 students withdraw. So we had an increase of 10 students. Finn pre-K had 10 students enroll and 12 students withdraw. So we had a decline of 2 students. In Fin K and 1, we had 19 students enroll and 3 students withdraw, so an increase in 17 students. And then at Trot Air, we had 16 new enrollments and 15 withdrawals, so an increase of 1. So really what we're anticipating is the greatest number of enrollments at the Fin K and 1 level, primarily as a result of the pandemic and many families either making alternative arrangements for educational systems in grade K or just keeping their students home for a year and delaying entry into kindergarten. So overall, our enrollment remains healthy and on target with NASDAQ projections. And I'd be happy to answer any questions around enrollments.
I did have my hand up briefly, but it was because, if this is okay, Roger. I didn't see that this was since July 1st. So it seemed like a lot of movement to me. And then I realized it was a lot. It seems like most of it happened before the start of the school year. And then, okay, so we've been, although a month-to-month variance of being down 8 students is unusual for us, but do we know why that was?
No, we don't. And,
Okay.
you know, it is sometimes what happens is we hold on to students who we think are enrolled. We haven't heard that they've unenrolled. And then we find out later that they've moved either out of state, most likely.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So if there are no further questions, next we will turn it over to Becky Pellegrino for the FY22 monthly general fund expenditure report and the COVID-19 related financials.
Thank you, Greg. In your packet, you'll find the monthly general fund report as of September 30th, 2021. As you can see, we had $751,140 remaining on the bottom line, or 3.46% of the FY22 budget. In comparison to last year's report, as of September 30th, 2020, we had $1,123,723, or 5.29 remaining on the bottom line. Over the past month, the finance team has really focused on encumbering our anticipated expenditures in order to give us a really good picture of the fiscal year 22 budget. And so that because of that, we really have made sure that all expenses are accounted for as compared to where we were at this time last year. One area that we have not yet encumbered, though, is our substitute teacher line item. And that is because as of September 30th, we really only had one true payroll. And so it's really not a good gauge for us, but we really hope to have, we've run a payroll as of today, and we will have another one. And so that will give us a really good indicator as to where we need to encumber funds for our substitute teacher line item. One other line item I just wanted to point out to you is the classroom instructional technology line item, and that is showing as over budget. These expenses will be moved onto our ESSER grant. It just has not occurred or had not occurred as of the date that this report was run. But as always, we are closely monitoring and fine-tuning the budget as we go through the school year. And Roger, before I start on the COVID report, I didn't know if you wanted to entertain a vote on this report.
I would. I'm sorry, did I see something? Okay, yeah, I'd like to vote on this before you start on the COVID. So I'd entertain a vote to approve the Southborough Public School District fiscal year 2022 budget monthly general fund expenditure report as of September 30th, 2021 until audited. Is there a so moved?
So moved by Kamali.
Moved by Kamali. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Katura. Any discussion? Seeing no hands up, roll call vote. Jennifer,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Katura,
Yes.
Kamali,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so that's unanimous. Thank you. Back to you, Becky.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of COVID-related expenses, the finance team, in coordination with Mary Ellen Duggan, continue to work closely with the town of Southborough as we submit eligible expenses to the town so that they can also submit for their FEMA reimbursement. So those expenses include the student and staff screenings that were done during the extended school year program, and also staff screenings during the month of September. As previously discussed, we've begun using the state's screening program and anticipate that we will no longer have costs associated with any sort of COVID testing. On Monday, October 4th, we did apply to the state for the ESSER 3 grant, which is funded through the American Recovery Plan. We had conducted a district-wide survey and we met with key groups to solicit feedback on the use of these funds. Once we receive word of the grant's approval, we will share our plan for the use of these funds with the committee and also with the community. So really not a lot to report in the COVID world financially, thankfully.
All right. Thank you.
Roger, can I make a comment actually?
Sorry. Well, let's see. Katura's.
Oh,
Go ahead,
I'm
Kim.
sorry.
Let's-
okay.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead,
yeah.
Kim. Go ahead, Kim. Go ahead, Kim. Wait.
Okay, go.
You're
So
gonna-
I'm
you-
just,
you-
I just want to say that a special thank you, because I know that Becky, like, to put together that ESSER grant, you were required to talk to the community, but I feel like the ways that you did it like felt really authentic, and I'm hoping that like we'll see that in the you know, the actual plan. Like it just like it was like it's very exciting to see like this influx of you know, investment in our community that really like took what we had to say into account. So just appreciate that.
Thank you.
And plus, I'll give you special consideration in being able to go first because you're our new delegate representative. So anyway, Katura.
Can you remind me, what's the amount of the ESSER 4 approximately that we're expecting?
Should have had that up and available. I will get that to you very quickly.
That's okay, because I think it was in the survey. So is that something that will we be voting on, like looking at where that money will be allocated and then voting on how that will be spent? That's my first question.
So at next month's meeting, it's our anticipation that we will be voting on all of the grants that we have received this past summer, not just the ESSER grant, but also our IDEA grant, our title grants. And so that's something that really has not been presented previously to the committee, but we are going to present that so that you can vote to accept those. Once the ESSER 3 grant is approved, we do have to post our plan to the public so that they understand what we applied for and how we intend to utilize those funds. And just to answer your other question, so it is $281,464 that we are eligible to receive. And if you recall, 20% of that did have to be reserved to combat loss of instructional time or loss of learning.
Okay. Because the reason I'm thinking about that is that I feel like all of the grant funds that are coming in are sort of like a big section of the budget that isn't appearing on the general fund expenditure report. And so it just seems a little sort of vague to me about like how much, because we don't have the charts anymore about those that we were getting for a while. So I wonder if there's a way to sort of consolidate that information so that we're able to review, you know, what's come in, where has it gone, how much is remaining, where is that going to go? And also, should we be voting on, you know, especially on this 281, where that's going to be allocated, because that's a, you know, I mean, that's a significant sort of budgetary section that I feel like the committee should probably be voting on, but correct me if I'm wrong.
So the committee will be voting on the actual grant.
Okay.
So basically, the way the process works is we sought community input. We spoke with community groups. We had the survey data. So from that information, we generated the grant. So and that was submitted. So once that's approved, we'll bring it to the committee. I will share with most grants, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of you can amend the grant as you move forward. So we put together our best thinking at the time, but there will be opportunities to amend the grant as we move forward in terms of our need. And we have multiple years to expend the money. So I will share that one of our strategies right now is to be very conservative with how we expend the money in fiscal year 22, because we're really looking at fiscal years 23 and 24 as potentially some more difficult financial times. And we want to have that funding to have a place to go if we need to. So I hope that provides some context.
Did we get the results of the survey? I don't remember.
No, so our plan is to present next month the YESER grant and the survey results, and basically connecting, why we selected the expenditures we did based on the survey data that we received.
Okay, so the grant was written based solely on the survey data, or was it also
it's the
input from principals or?
All of the above. It was basically guided by our strategic plan, school improvement plans, the feedback from our community groups, the district leadership team. So it was a community effort.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And I'm sure Becky would be more than happy to generate her monthly reports on all the grants we have and provide more detail on a monthly basis. I think that is helpful because it doesn't appear in our operational budget, but it is a significant amount of funding that we receive to move our work forward as a district.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was kind of looking around for that. So I think that's a really good idea.
Kim.
So sort of ditto what everybody just said about the detail would be great. But also I'm wondering, so if we move into a situation where we need to amend what we're spending, is that something that you would come back to the committee and let us know? Or is it sort of like, we're voting on the acceptance of the full grant and the rules associated with it kind of thing?
So I think there were criteria for how the money could be expended, and that was very clear. So if we were to amend the grant, there would be conversation at the district leadership team and with principals and educators, and then we'd come back and present that to the committee. I think I'll just end by saying that one of the challenges of the grant funds that we are receiving, with ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, that is one-time funding, that it's not a long-term funding source. So it's important not to make long investments that require long-term increases in our operational budget. It's to make sure that we're funding to support the needs of our students here and now, and also putting us in a good place without increasing our operational budget and creating budget gaps once this money is expended by the community.
Anything else? All right, great. Thank you. So we're into capital planning. Am I correct about that?
Correct. So the capital planning subcommittee met on October 4th.
It was the most well-attended capital planning subcommittee that I've ever attended, by the way.
Yes, so it was well attended, and basically Keith Lavoie kind of shared the details of the plan. And Keith, do you want to just give a few highlights for FY23, and then also speak a little bit about how we're addressing Neary Elementary and some of the capital projects that we anticipate, and what that looks like on the plan.
Yeah, sure, Greg. Certainly one of the highlights that is on in the near future for us is really getting a good quality assessment of the paving needs both at Finn and Trottier. This has been a capital item for a couple of years, and we do hope to be able to make some movement on one or both of those projects. One thing to keep in mind is that the availability of contractors and the price of this type of work is really fluctuating, and when it's fluctuating, it's never going in the right direction. So we are trying to get some solid numbers on that, including the scope of what is needed on the grounds of both facilities, so we can make a good decision. But as soon as we're able to get more of that detail for the committee, that will be shared back to let you know what we're hoping to get accomplished in the near future with those two major projects. Likewise, what Greg said about the Neary School, we really did take another deeper look at the facilities conditions assessment that was done by Vertex last year that helped us prepare the statement of interest for the Neary School. And we were able to update the capital plan with some of those major areas that needed improvement for Neary. In particular, the electrical system and certainly the single pane windows that are found throughout the facility were additions that were made to the plan. But it does, what we're able to do is really take another look at that and make sure that what we're identifying here is consistent with what we were seeing in that report, and therefore also as part of that statement of interest. So there is continuity between the two documents. Greg, is there any other detail you think I should add or any other highlights?
No, I'll just add that I think that I think the town of Southborough is engaged in kind of a larger capital planning exercise. And we are a part of that larger picture and plan. So our next step is really to take a draft of our capital plan and meet with Mark Purple and potentially the capital planning board, and just communicate what our plans are, and to make sure that it is aligned with the master plan the town is putting together. And that will be brought forward to the November meeting for hopefully a vote. So also on the agenda under capital planning is just a quick update on the Trottier electrical panel. So we did get the final fit cost of the replacement of the electrical panel at Trottier. And before I share the cost, I just want to again acknowledge Brian Fantoni and Keith Lavoie and the team that quickly went into action to come to a resolution to a unpredictable situation without having to impact student learning or closing our schools. So again, great work by the team. The final cost of the repair was $39,326.82. So Becky is working with Mark Purple and submitting an insurance claim that has been submitted, and we are waiting to hear whether it is going to be accepted through our insurance provider. So more information will be shared once we hear back from Maya. And I will share that these funds did come out of our rental revolving account. So it didn't come out of our operational budget. It did come out of our rental revolving account that does go back directly into facilities and repairing and other capital projects for our facilities.
Greg, if I could just make one additional comment, Renault Electric, the ones that we did partner with on this project, were also extraordinary. They worked long hours over a Labor Day weekend I will never forget, and they were extraordinary from the beginning to the end of the project. So, I think Becky would echo that, even from a financial standpoint and getting the detail we need. They were a good partner as well, and I know Brian was extremely satisfied.
All right, so if there are no questions, next in the packet is your FY23 budget priorities.
Yeah, let me jump in on this if I could, Greg. So you've got there are 10 items here, folks. And these were in the packet last month, and we agreed that we give everybody a month to determine whether or not they thought that these were appropriate or that they wanted to make any changes. Now, I haven't heard anything from any individual committee members. Did anyone, well, I guess before I ask if anyone would like to make any changes, Greg, do you have any comments on these that you'd like to communicate before I ask that question?
No, I just think it's important to acknowledge the exercise that the committee engaged in last year during this time, and that was to really align budget priorities with the district strategic plan. So I would say that was a more in-depth process than a typical year. So I did revisit these and do feel they are in great alignment with what we're trying to accomplish with our school improvement plans and district strategic plan.
And I think both those 2 points are very important. So, Greg, having said that, any changes anyone would like to recommend, or shall we vote these? Because I'd like to vote these tonight, unless we have something specific that we think, unless we have some reason that we shouldn't. Kim.
You're on mute, Kim.
Thank you. No changes, but I had a question about just-in-time professional learning and what that is.
Sure. So I can start, and then Stephanie, you can add. So just-in-time professional learning is the work that our coaches do.
Okay, got it.
For example, Megan Kelty, so our instructional technology specialists.
Okay.
So they can actually go in just in time when a teacher might be struggling with a concept and actually provide coaching and modeling.
Okay.
Kamali?
So I don't want to make any changes, and I just want to offer that when I read them through between our last meeting and now, everything that's listed flows through everything that we've been talking about for 2 years, and every presentation, even tonight's presentation, you could see exact phrases. It flows through our vision, and so I think that it's the right choice for us to vote these in as is.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 school committee budget priorities as presented in the document in your packets. We have a so moved or a second.
So moved.
Kamali has made the motion. Is there a second?
The second by Kamali, and the motion is made by Katura.
I'm sorry. I'll be all right. Well, maybe I'll be all right. I wanted to give Kim credit for all of that because, as I say, she's my favorite person for a while. Okay, but all right.
Just wait until you have to be the alternate.
It's a roll call vote, folks. Jen?
Yes.
Katura?
Yes.
Kamali?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so it is unanimous. Now we're moving to the budget calendar, Greg?
Yes, so in your packet is the budget calendar, and we did receive a communication from Brian Valentine around the budget process and schedule. So Cheryl will be adding that information to the calendar, but we are on target in terms of the budget process as it stands today.
Informational technology update?
Yeah, so just a brief update. So I have some disappointing news. So I did hear from Maurice Myrie, who shared that he's decided that move on and go in a different direction. So as you know, Maurice Myrie is the Chief Information Officer. It wasn't something that I was anticipating. So we were very disappointed. But also applaud Maurice. He said it was just not a fit for him. And I think it was really just not a fit. And he wanted to find something he was going to find a little more fulfilling. I will share that we're all very disappointed. We will be doing an exit interview with Maurice to see, what we could do differently to make sure that whoever is hired next in this position, that we retain the person and make sure that it is a fulfilling position. I will share that the job is extremely challenging, requires a tremendous amount of effort. It's 24/7, and it's incredibly complex. And it's a lot to ask of any one individual. And the configuration of our district where you get to do things 3 times. So the structure that we have makes this job even more complicated. So we will be searching for a new Chief Information Officer, but also we're going to be looking at potentially consulting or outsourcing some of our technology projects. So we're going to look at two different pathways, but I just wanted to share that with the committee.
All right. No educational policy at this time. There's no policy development and or distribution at this time. In the packet early on was the masking policy, and we discussed masking at the time. Any questions on that? I should have asked at the time, so we had that in our packet. Greg, I think, gave a pretty good overview on where we are and the timeframes. All right, so no policy questions at this time.
I have one actually, Roger.
Okay, go ahead, Kim.
So on the face masking policy, like we talked about it a little bit in the subcommittee, but I'm wondering how you feel, Greg, as far as like operationally, if you can sort of like work with the medical advisory team to go back and forth. I mean, obviously we're not doing a lot of back and forth, but the policy as is a little bit more rigid than what we're able to do right now.
Yeah, so I think that if you do read the policy word for word, and if we were going to have a face covering policy for the long term, over multiple years, we probably want to revisit it and have it more accurately reflect what the current practice is. But I do feel like right now we have flexibility in terms of we're following the masking mandate indoors. So I think we have the flexibility, and I will share that the medical advisory team recommendation for pre-K through 8 is to continue with the masking for the time being until vaccinations are more widely available to all students.
Sounds good.
Good. Okay, personnel.
So in your packet is the personnel report for as of October 13th. So it's quieted down quite a bit, and our Human Resources Department has done an outstanding job in a very difficult recruiting season, and just commend them for their work. I think it's one of the most important aspects of our work is hiring great people, and we have a great team working on that goal.
Communications, the Coalition for Equity meeting scheduled.
So the Coalition for Equity meeting is a week from tomorrow, so October 21st, and we're looking forward to re-engaging with the Coalition for Equity and continuing the work forward.
All right. Any other communications, Greg?
I think
Not at this time.
none at this time for me.
Okay, we've got the September 9th minutes to approve. Anyone have any comments or questions on that set of minutes? Kim? You're muted.
Sorry, it's getting late, obviously. I'm wondering if we could postpone this until the next meeting and add, I think, just a couple, the one thing under new business, and when Marie did her update, I think I asked at the end about the ESY and the need for some students getting compensatory services. And I think that that is like a good thing to have in the minutes, that we sort of all agree that it happened for some students. So yeah.
Kim, if you're comfortable recommending a change, we potentially can agree on the change and then just vote on the minutes as amended, unless
Okay.
you want.
No, that's perfect. That's great.
We probably like to get these things submitted within a certain time
Yes,
frame, so we're not
yes.
outside the time frame. So certainly,
Yes.
feel free. Let's talk about
So
the.
do you, Marie, do you
amendments?
remember, like, maybe like that I think it was a question at the very end, so it probably could have gotten lost, whoever was doing the transcribing, but
Yes, well, we did talk about that,
okay,
and that students did receive compensatory services.
okay.
Marie, can you connect with Cheryl tomorrow and just so we can capture that in the minutes?
Sure.
And I think for the rest of the committee, it's just a reminder that there were some, like, it was so hard to hire some different specialists. So there were some students that just didn't get everything that they needed. So but they're getting it now.
Right. And those were the reading services and the speech and language. Those were the two areas. The reading tutor and the speech and language were the folks that we had difficulty hiring completely. So the people that didn't receive those services received compensatory services.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie.
Is that the only change that you're thinking about, Kim?
Yeah.
Okay. So are people comfortable voting the minutes as amended with that additional information being added? And Marie, you're going to work with Cheryl to, I guess, present that in the minutes.
Yes, I will do that.
All right, folks are comfortable with that. I would entertain a motion to approve the Southborough School Committee open meeting, virtual meeting minutes for Thursday, September 9th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. As printed but amended as we've discussed tonight, and will be inserted in the next couple of days by Marie.
So moved, Kim.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Jen.
I think I'll do this right. So moved by Kim, seconded by Jen. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Kamali?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Katura?
Yes.
I vote yes. It's unanimous. Let's see, bills and payrolls. Okay, we've got agenda items for next month. It's in your packet. And obviously people have a chance to add things if it's not too late in the, intervening period. Anybody have anything they'd like to add to that list at this point? Okay. And for now, we'll talk about the school improvement plan, the conference recap, NASDAQ enrollment projections, And we'll talk about 23 preliminary budget, update of EDP feasibility, world language, transportation, update from the principals, and lessons learned from the pandemic.
Can I just ask Roger quickly? It says NESDEC enrollment projections 1026. Do we have a special meeting scheduled?
Yes, and that's on 10/27, I believe.
1027. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll correct that. And it's and NESDEC enrollment projections, and then we'll share the space needs and enrollment feasibility study that we did internally with this committee.
Thank you. That's what I thought. I was looking for it on my calendar on the 26th, but it's on the 27th. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Audience sharing. I don't, oh, there's a, I hope I pronounced this correctly. Alan Belniak, did I do that right? And he has his hand up, so can we promote him?
I'm gonna call on Stephanie. I gave her hosting abilities when I was breaking up. So Stephanie, can you allow Alan to speak?
Hello, can you hear me?
Welcome. We can.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I apologize earlier. I was the one who placed the comment in the chat. Forgive me for forgetting the protocol of how the school committee meetings run. Also, unfortunately, I too got disconnected. I saw someone had replied to me in the chat, but then once I rejoined, I'm not able to see that. So, but before we go over that, I do have a couple of questions. I'm not sure if the sharing portion is just for comments or if this is also the opportunity to ask questions based on what we talked about this evening.
The sharing is really only for comments. So we don't, it's not a question and answer period. But, you know, certainly any comments you make, you know, will be, noted and
okay.
Potentially dealt with at some point in the future. And by the way, don't, so thank you for apologize on the chat question, but don't, you know, I mean, we just wanted to make sure, and Jen saw it and I didn't, we just wanted to make sure that you weren't upset that you didn't get a reply. Although I think the superintendent always has the right to make a reply if he thinks it's appropriate, but many times that won't happen. So we just don't want folks to feel bad like they were ignored. But we record them all.
Understood. Okay, thank you. So what I'll do then is I will submit my questions in email form to the school committee, I guess, listserv and copy the superintendent. And if those merit a response, then thank you very much. And then the one comment I'll have is I was just happy to hear during the superintendent's report about the move of extended day into the system is that there is the idea, the notion of parent feedback, of a parent advisory committee. I'm very happy to hear that. I'm eagerly awaiting to see how that's going to play out. I know looking at calendar, it's October 13th. I think there was an idea to have some sort of a forming opinion by December. So it doesn't give us a ton of time. So I'm just looking forward to see how that's going to play out. And I thank everyone for considering the parent feedback. As you all know, it was a very important important topic for the parents in the community. So thank you for that.
Well,
Roger, you're on mute.
Mute. Oh, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Now that I'm not on mute. I also thank you when I was on mute. All right. So let me just go back to that other screen. I guess no other hands up. So why don't I?
Roger, can we share that, or I should say, Greg, would you mind just repeating your response so that since he was not able to read that previously, he could hear that from you?
Yeah, so the question was really around the vaccination rates at our middle school, and was it a weighted average or by grade level? So it was by grade level in terms of the way the data was being presented. So it was 11% in 6th grade, and then I don't have the figures in front of me anymore, But regardless, but the way the state language is written is that it needs to be 80% in aggregate across all of the grade levels in that particular school. So, and we did not reach the 80% threshold yet, again, because sixth grade is not, most sixth graders are not eligible for vaccination at this time.
And so then, and until they're eligible for vaccination, that probably, that's we'll never reach that number, with all the sixth graders, the numbers of them. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I hear that?
This is Kamali. I motion that we adjourn at 9:16 p.m.
Moved by Kamali. Is there a second?
I'll second. Katura.
Okay. All right. Moved by Kamali, seconded by Katura. Roll call vote. Jen?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Katura?
Yes.
Kamali?
Yes.
I vote yes. It is unanimous at 9:16. At least that's when the vote was